Research isn't just limited to STEM majors. There are like many areas and like disciplines in research which you could be interested in researching. You don't even have to do something that's like related to your major. And it's never too late to get started in research, like freshmen and sophomores, like it's perfect. So what is research? Many of you guys may know what research is, but basically it's discovering new knowledge through like experimentation and critical analysis. But what does it mean to be an undergraduate in research? So you guys would typically be going to lab like for 8 to 10 hours a week, sometimes more. And you would have the principal investigator of the lab, and you would mostly be working with graduate students in the lab, and you would help them on their projects, and maybe you would possibly get a project of your own after you've been working in the lab for some time. Uh, so yeah, there's a lot to do as an undergraduate in research, and it's mostly just how much you put into the lab that you're in. And the best question is like, when should I start looking to get involved in research? And it's as soon as possible. There is no really like right time to get started. And as soon as like you find something that you're interested in, you can start contacting like the professors and stuff like that. So how I got into research was in my freshman year, I took a course called Science for Life seminar, and we would have like a weekly rotation of professors who would present their research. And one of the assignments for the class was to conduct an interview with the faculty member who conducts research. And through that, I ended up interviewing someone in the UF brain tumor immunotherapy program. And after I interviewed him, I like really liked his work. I thought the stuff he was doing was super interesting, working with like nanoparticle vaccines to treat cancer. So I ended up reaching out to him afterwards saying like, hey, I really like your research. I read a couple of your papers and I got a spot in the lab. So I've been working there since my freshman year, and now I'm a sophomore in my second semester. So I've been in the lab for a while now. And how do you go about finding a mentor? So there's like lots of mentors here at UF, and they're in many different disciplines. So you can probably look at departmental websites. These are a great resource, and you can oftentimes like find what faculty members are like publishing and working on, and you just want to like glaze over some articles that they've written and create a short list of up to 10 professors, like around 8 to 10 professors, sometimes even more. And you want to reach out to them via email, and you just want to say that you're interested in their work. And the reason why we say 10 professors is because like lots of PIs are busy, and they might not like respond to you right away. And so it's just good to have like a long list, just because that's the nature of working with these individuals who are so busy. And another way is through like our Facebook. The UF Center for Undergraduate Research Facebook posts a lot of announcements and research opportunities. And on top of the Facebook page, there's also our website, and there's a heading like called Research Opportunities, where you can search through a database of existing like faculty members, where they have like who they're looking for, what kind of research they're doing, and the position that's available. And you can also use the Center for Undergraduate Research like email follow-up. So there's a QR code that's going to be on the last slide, and you can stay on an email list, which keeps you up to date with CURBS and any like research opportunities that we find out and want to tell you about. And also in the notes from this workshop, there will be a link to like the Center for Undergraduate Research like department websites. And another great way to get involved is through like organizations pages. So like in AMSA, there's a lot of posts about like shadowing, scribing, research assistant positions, and like a lot. So there's definitely a lot of places to look for a mentor. And it's just like, you should reach out to around 8 to 10 and maybe expect to hear back from like 5 of them. And I know that COVID presents like a concern, like how you be working in the lab. And there's a lot of like regulations that UF has that faculty members like have to balance. So for me, when I started in March of last year, because of COVID, they couldn't actually bring me onto the lab until like later in summer because there were just too many people for that space. But I was able to still like read papers that the lab sent me and kind of get an idea so I could like hit the floor running when I did join the lab. And so oftentimes there's usually like trainings and like prep work and paperwork that you need to do beforehand. So it's a good idea, like even if they say like, yeah, we're in a virtual format, but I'm willing to work with you later, like it's a good idea to get a head start on that paperwork, and you can read their papers, maybe ask them about like challenges or like the direction that the lab is heading. And there are also remote research opportunities. And if you open this link right here, you'll see like a PDF or a Google Doc with a lot of opportunities that CURBS is like compiled together, which will really get you guys started on like virtual research opportunities. And so sometimes it's like beneficial to take an advanced course in the subject material related to your research. And there's also virtual like seminars that you could attend. Like there's lots of research conferences where people present a lot of papers, and you can use these to kind of get an idea and feel for what the lab is actually doing. And I know that I say like you should read the papers of what the lab is publishing and like get an idea, but what does that mean to read a paper? So oftentimes like a research paper, it like begins with an abstract, which is basically a summary of like what the research has. It'll often have a background and the goal of the research project and have like an introduction to their work, and sometimes even like a discussion of the results. But most of the research paper will be like the methods, results, and discussion, which can kind of like hinder you down. And unless you know like the nuances of the language, it's a bit hard to understand. So that's why you should read the abstract first to get a general idea of the paper. And then if it interests you more, you can look at the introduction and conclusion to find out what the future of the project is, what the results actually were. And you don't have to like get hold up on like reading the methods and understanding them, because there's a lot of there's a lot to understand in like a research paper, and no one expects you to like be able to like dive right into a paper and completely understand it on your first read through, especially if you have no prior experience in the field. But yeah, when you like just skim through the abstract and the introduction and conclusion, you can get a pretty good idea of like what the paper is about and if this seems like something that's interesting to you. And like once you're like reaching out to professors, like how do you write a good email? What should you include if you really kind of want to like secure that position in their lab? So oftentimes like the PIs and professors are like really busy. So a short but effective email is what's best. And you want to include like any attachments that you think are helpful, like your transcripts, like a cover letter, maybe a resume. And also you really want to introduce yourself so that the professor knows who they're talking to, like if you're a freshman, what your major is and why you're interested in studying like their research or um, stuff that they'd just like to know to hear. And you also want to explain to them that you've read their publications and you enjoyed learning about like this specific thing. It's a good idea to like usually reference like a paper that they've wrote, like a recent paper, and talk like how like this point was interesting because it's just a short thing to acknowledge that like you've read the paper. And you always want to close out your emails with like a line that essentially like says like, I would love to work on one of your projects, like is there anything in the future that I could possibly like help on. And yeah. So here we have an example. Starting at the top, you see like an attachment of the transcript and a resume. And you always want to begin with like a greeting, like hello. And it's important to always address them as doctor. Usually these PIs like have a PhD or an MD, and it's like It's important to respect that, and sometimes like people might find it offensive if you don't include the title. So that's just a like nitpicky thing. But you see in the first line, like there's an introduction saying that they're transferring to the University of Florida. And like after taking like the science courses, like principles of biology and chemistry, it kind of gives an idea of like what the student knows so far. And a little bit later in the email, you see like I also read an abstract of one of your publications, and they list the like the name of the paper here. And then the following line, they're just saying like what they found interesting, saying that the transcription factor is very interesting. So they're pointing out specifics in the paper, acknowledging that like they've read it, and it's just a short line. Um, oops. And then you see the closing here. If there are any other projects you're working on, I would also love to look into those, and saying that you're motivated, eager to learn, and responsible, and just that you're like eager to work there in the lab, and that you want to do anything to help. And then like emphasizing like a GPA down here, and saying that you've attached your transcripts and resume is a good idea. And now, so most of the times after you've sent the professors an email, sometimes you get a response back, and they usually want to meet you. Because of COVID, sometimes that might be virtually through Zoom, or you might get a chance to meet the professor like in person and see the lab. But regardless, like I think these pointers are helpful for both situations. So you want to know their research beforehand, and like especially if a professor like wants to meet you, you should read like a couple more papers, not just one, and just like have a general understanding of the what the work is that they do, and come up with some questions beforehand. You can just like think of one or two that like what projects are you working on? Like if you were to get involved with the lab, how would you be helping? Like who would you be working with? And then obviously your dress code, like dress business casual, or dress nicely. And you want to be prepared to answer questions like why do you want to research on a project, and why do you want to research in this area? It's just for the professor to know like if you kind of have like a thorough understanding, and gauging like why you would be a good fit for their lab. And so you also want to ask about your commitments and expectations. Like some professors might expect 8 to 10 hours, while some might expect up to 15 hours. And so usually you want to schedule like your classes to be able to take like a large block of time at once, not just like 30 minutes one day and then like 2 hours the next and then like 30 minutes the next. You just want to give them like a large block of time so that you can really get involved in the work, and be able to commit time. And it's also a really important thing to set goals and like what you should accomplish by the end of the semester. And this kind of goes with expectations. Like if the professor wants you to be able to do this by yourself at the end of like the semester, like these are like like you can oftentimes ask them like, hey, what are 3 things that you want me to be able to do by the end of the semester? So that sets up like a working relationship between you and the professor, and it'll just help you create a better working relationship with the professor if you're able to um, go above and beyond in what they ask in the lab. And so oftentimes, if you are spending up to like 8 to 10 hours in research, you can register for taking your research for credits. And so you can register for like the course codes are like 4911 or 4912. And the letters beforehand would depend on which department you're doing research in. So right now I'm doing research in the College of Medicine. So that would be BMS 4911. And it just depends. You can oftentimes talk to your mentor and see like if they know the course number, or you can just look on the UF page, and there's usually like advice on which one to take. And so once you enroll in the course, they send out an email, and there's a form that you have to fill out. And it's just asking like essentially like who's your PI, what is their like what are their expectations for you, like what is the project that you'll be working on for the semester. And it's basically just for you to get a grade at the end of the semester. And you can register between 0 to 3 credits. So I think every credit is 4 hours approximately. So if you sign up for 3 credits, you would have to be going to lab for 12 hours per week. And so here at CURBS, like one of the best resources that we have is our peer advising. And peer advising is available in Newell Hall, which is like right across from the hub, and it's on the second floor in room 202. So like once you take the elevator, if you take the stairs, it's right there when you enter. And I think for this month, it's also held online, so you can join through Zoom. And there are walk-in hours as well, Monday through Friday, 9:35 to 3:50 p.m. And you don't need an appointment. You can just walk in and talk to any one of our advisors, and they'd be happy to help you. So peer advising is really great if you have specific questions, if you like don't know where to start, if you want help like writing an email to professors, and like just any questions you have in general about research. If you want to talk to somebody in person about that, you can just reach out to our peer advisors in the Newell office. And so what now? You can just follow Curbs on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and we'll be sending lots of updates on like what happens in undergraduate research. We post a lot of mentor spotlights and just research opportunities in general. And also, like if you're on your path to getting involved in research, you want to like do some background knowledge, just like general ideas, like what what kind of work do you want to be involved in, and stuff like that. So you can go ahead and talk to a CURBS peer advisor, so either Zoom or in person, and it's like one-on-one meetings, and they'll help set you up with like finding research, and they'll really help you.